Hello, Hamish Conway here, and welcome to another episode of TACOS Tuesday, the place for the best Amazon ads, tactics, and strategies. And with me today, again, is Sebastian Hargraves. Welcome, Seb.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here for this one.
Brilliant, excellent. And look, the topic today is we're into May, and we're in this middle third of the year, calling it the middle months, and this can be a bit of a funny time for a lot of brands as they've been. It's not quarter four, which has its own own strategies required, or the start of the year. You kind of flowing, continuing the momentum from that, or you might be starting to build. But you get to these middle months, and in some cases, for many brands, this is off season, and so then it raises a lot of questions on: do they just stop advertising completely, or how do they adjust their bidding around it? So we're going to dive into that a little bit today as well. But I just want to start with Seb, because we, on at the end of last week, just as we were reviewing things, because as we do this podcast here, we've got this unique perspective given we're dealing with so many accounts, and as an Amazon Ads Advanced partner in the top 5% of ad spend managed in Australia, so we've got this unique perspective here. And what we've noticed twice last week is we had for those clients that are vendors, that Amazon is now trying to dictate where you can what you can advertise on. Particularly, they're not liking low average sale price products. So that in some cases they're saying, look, it's got to be over $22, and they're even talking about like stopping ordering. And the reason why they're doing this is because they're saying that they're losing money on it. It's kind of interesting, and I think we need to do a whole episode on this in terms of managing your margins with Amazon, because one of the key reasons in using first party is because if you have lower price products and the FBA fees don't work in terms of being a third party seller, so you go, right, let's just do that. But Amazon is very interesting in how they look at their margins. They really are infatuated with the percentage, not the actual GP contribution. But that's another story. So we're kind of just working through that with two clients. Just even that was from last week. So I imagine, I'd be keen to know, if you are a vendor, have you had this request or comment from Amazon as well, as they look at how to be more profitable themselves and steering you away from products that you might be advertising on very successfully, and they want you to advertise on products that are offer higher average order value. So that's kind of interesting. Any comments on that initially, Seb?
One thing that did come kind of out of that was that Amazon's very much focused right now on trying to bundle up their products and things like that to help with that ASP part. So, and I mean that helps everyone. So that is kind of a pretty good strategy for all brands. It does increase the average order value and things like that. So it's something that we've noticed as well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so I think we'll dive into that. But I think for those of you that are vendor, curious to know if you've had that conversation as well, and we'll cover that off, whether it's next week or the week after. Probably get Annika involved as well. Annika's our head of client delivery and does a lot on the vendor side, including fee recovery for shortages and a lot of conversations around managing margin and the different programs that Amazon has there. So, but anyway, we'll pivot back to the advertising side of things. So we hit May, and Seb, tell us, what are we doing with our clients here to manage through these middle months? There's obviously July, there'll be Prime Day, because it's probably going to be 4 days now, isn't it? Or they'll have a week, 10 days, it'll keep on stretching. So there's that on the horizon. But what are we doing at the moment? And I know it'll be different for every client. Some around tariffs are holding back or cutting right back until there's some changes there. But what are you doing, and what are you noticing?
Yeah, so it is a bit of a limbo period, as you said. You kind of have your Q1. A lot of products and brands do quite well out of Q1. January, people kind of getting into that new year focus on them and improving themselves, and they're willing to spend money at that point. And then, but obviously not for all brands, but a good chunk of brands do have that bump. And then you do have this lull period where it's kind of like now we're between the new year, new you has sort of drained away, and we're coming to the cooler months, at least here in AU, and you've got the Prime on the horizon as well. So, and people will start to be thinking about that too shortly. They'll start be thinking, oh, wait, I'll wait and make my purchase once Prime comes around. So inevitably what happens with brands is that their conversion rate drops off a little bit through the month, which is fine. That's normal. Conversion rate moves up and down based on seasonal fluctuations and things that we just mentioned. But the key part is making sure that you are preparing for that with your advertising. So what we do is we always calculate our bids to include conversion rate as part of our calculation so that we know what we can afford to pay with advertising. So that's kind of the part that we do for our customers. So we're sharing screen, and what we're showing is 5 columns. We have your sales, clicks, your revenue per click, your target ACOS, and your target CPC. So I'll walk through just what each one of them is first, and then we'll walk you through how to calculate them. So, and again, this is the objective of this exercise is to work out what should I be paying for my bids. So I'm coming into a season where I'm not converting as much. Should they just be what they were previously, or should they change? And so the first column is just sales. The second column is clicks. The third column is what we call RPC, or revenue per click. Now, this is just taken by dividing your sales by your clicks, and you end up with a RPC. So that's basically every click, how much revenue does that click generate in revenue?
So, Seb, just so I can just double click on this a little bit, no pun intended, given we're talking about clicks there. But so this could this be looking at it from a campaign level primarily here?
No, this could be looking at it at individual keyword level. Yep. Targets. Okay. Targets have their own. You can see clicks on every individual target, so you can do that. Targets are like search terms or competitor product pages is what we would call a target.
Right. Okay. So looking at these numbers here, so we've got sales, and this is just trying to keep the math simple. 300 clicks, 60 RPC, revenue per click is $5. Yep. You've got a target ACOS of 35%. So that would mean your target cost per click could be as high as $1.75. So that's what you could bid.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
So you can bid $1.75 if your target ACOS was 35% and your revenue per click was $5.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we start to hit these middle months, or there's lower traffic, or there's lower conversion, and instead of your revenue per click being $5, it goes down to $3. And you've still got the same target ACOS, but then what you're saying here is you've got to adjust, because now your target cost per click should only be $1.05 for your bid.
That's right. Yep. So $1.05 for your cost per click, with a revenue per click of $3. So and the key part here is that when you're looking at data, you're always looking at it in the rearview mirror. You're not looking at it forward, because you haven't collected that data yet. You don't know what that data is going to look like. But if you either have historical data either from the year before, or that your product is seasonal. So, if you sell, I don't know, swimmers, something like that, right? That's obviously very seasonal. You're only using that during the summer months, and you're not going to be selling it during the winter months. You can start to anticipate the drop-off in your conversion rate before it actually happens. So, for example, in this example, we've calculated what the revenue per click is here. If you went back and look at your historical data, you might be able to say, okay, during this period, I know that it's in my off period, it's $3. So you don't have to wait to make adjustments to your bids to see the revenue per click drop to $3. Historically, that's what it's been for you in the past, and you can start to make these adjustments in the future. Because otherwise, what will happen is you'll end up with a period of time where you won't be hitting your target. And that's because your conversion rate has changed, but you haven't changed your bids yet to reflect the new conversion rate. You're waiting for the data to come in preparation to see that poor conversion rate in calculation. So a little bit trickier if you don't have data from the year before. But again, you can start to reduce your cost per click in preparation, just knowing that you're going to have a period that's a lower conversion period.
I mean, otherwise, you might be looking at it, review it weekly just to go, right, do I need to adjust this?
Yeah.
Adjust this down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the key things as advertisers that we do. We decide on what look back period we need to use in our data. Meaning, do we use the last 7 days of data, the last 14 days of data, the last 30 days of data? The more data you have, the more confidence you have with the decisions on what your bids should be. The shorter your data range, the less confidence you have, but the more real-time data you have with what's happening. So you lose a little bit of data confidence because you've got low clicks, but you gain that reactive nature of a market.
Yeah. Okay. So the action step here is for people like look back to May last year, or even this May-June period in particular, because we'll talk in upcoming episodes about how to prepare for Prime Day, and the lead into that. But even just looking back on May and June last year and do this, look at whether it's by search term or by campaign, depends on how many you've got and how long you want to spend on this. Looking at what was the revenue per click, and if you had a target ACOS, what was your target cost per click? And then just look at that adjustment that you might need to make in your bid there. So that is really useful. So hopefully that has made sense for those just listening. If not, have a quick look at the YouTube video on our site. We'll just put that slide up on our webpage as well. And look, and otherwise, again, as you get into this time of year, and many companies have budgets that are set. Obviously, in Australia, you've got the 30 June finish and a 1 July kind of new period. So, you've got 2 months to go in the financial year. So you may be a little bit light on budget left for the year. So you could apply this approach again as well, just so you're managing it. But what else are you noticing, Seb, for brands in terms of, should people stop? What's the impact of stopping advertising completely through these quieter periods?
The biggest impact is going to be loss of sales from obviously stopping advertising. Now, our suggestion is never to do that. It's really just to limit your exposure to advertising when you're not converting. I mean, in that scenario we just shared, both of those scenarios both hit a target ACOS of 35%. Now, if you've gone through and done your contribution margin and you've worked out what that contributes to you, both scenarios are equal in the sense that they're equal in the amount of money that you're bringing in the door. It's just that one of them took a lot more clicks to do that, and you paid the appropriate amount of price to get those amount of clicks, knowing that the conversion rate was lower. So the scenarios are exactly the same. The sales both equaled 300. It's just that you pay, those time frames, like we didn't show any time frames there. The time frames probably would have been different. One would have probably got 300 sales in 7 days. The other one got it in 14 days, double the time frame that we're looking at. But both of them still equal 300 sales over that period. So, one of them wasn't any more profitable than the other. And this is the beauty about managing correctly with bids, is that you are paying the same amount, the right amount for what you're targeting.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent. So hopefully that makes sense for everyone. And obviously, it's, for those of you selling in America and making some decisions around what you can be spending there now, who knows what changes are going to happen there. But obviously at the moment it's making it quite difficult for a lot of brands. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. But anything else to share, Seb, on these middle months?
No, other than if someone needs help with calculating what this should be, please reach out to us, and we could definitely do a bit of a analysis for you, just to show you like what should you be paying. To help you that is one of the things that we do help brands do, is getting really clear on what the strategy is. Yeah,
because it's certainly not a set and forget. Not doing an auto campaign and just hoping it works. And we look out for these trends and these seasonal shifts, and constantly looking to optimize. So have a look at that. Go to gosellglobal.com, and then you'll look at services and management for Amazon ads, and you can connect with Seb on there. And also the other thing coming up at the end of the month is Retail Fest. And so I know some of the people listening will be going to that. This is one of the best events for e-commerce in Australia. It's on the Gold Coast, looking at my calendar here, on the 28th to the 30th of May. So go to retailglobal.com.au, and that'll come up with Retail Fest, or even just Google Retail Fest Gold Coast, and you'll find the details on that. And we are running a live workshop on Wednesday morning. So we've got a 3-hour event. We're going to be spending an hour on ads. We're going to be spending an hour on content design and search terms. then the last hour will be doing hot seats and FAQs, or Q&A rather. So that's going to be a great workshop. We're going to put a lot of effort into that, and we're just really, as we do with the podcast, we just share as much as we can. So anything around Amazon, whether you're a vendor or a third-party seller, it'll be relevant for you. So if you're going to that event, make sure you're there. If you're not going to that event yet, have a look at it. It'll be it's a great event to be at, and building some excellent connections, and you'll learn a lot. So check that out. And otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in again, and we look forward to seeing you next week on TACOS Tuesday. All the best. Thanks, Seb. Thanks everyone for listening. All the best.